Eventually we're going to make our own drink so that we can have it on.
We should.
We got to promote something. Well, I suppose we're promoting Anchor Group services, but if we had a drink someday.
I feel like with our company, there could be a couple of good drink options we could choose, honestly. Have you guys ever heard
Well,
of
with the nautical theme, probably would have to go like rum.
I know. Have you guys ever heard of I think it's rum or whiskey that's aged in barrels that are in the bottom of ships, like ocean-going vessels?
Yeah.
And so they expand and contract, and like you get a salty tones, and you can see where your whiskey went in the world. It's sweet.
Christmas present idea for this year.
There you go.
Well, today, other than talking whiskey and alcohol, we're going to go deeper into SuiteCommerce.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Here at Anchor Group, Caleb is seen as one of our resident SuiteCommerce gurus, one of our experts. He's got a lot of experience in SuiteCommerce, and so today we're hoping to share some of that expertise and experience with you all.
Yeah, it's a topic I like to talk a lot about, and I find a lot of value for a lot of clients, and I've come to really like the product as well overall. It solves some nice use cases in different industries, and the total cost of ownership, and it's all pretty good across the board. And with any solution, there's pros and cons, and I'm sure we'll get into that too.
Yeah.
But I like to just think about some of the businesses that works really well for my thought process. But it's a product that I've come to really like, especially for the B2B space.
Caleb, before we hop into the specifics about SuiteCommerce, take us back to the beginning. What was your introduction to SuiteCommerce like?
Well, my brother was a SuiteCommerce developer, and so I was doing some project management work for some SuiteCommerce projects, and he was doing a lot of the development work, and that's kind of where I mostly got introduced at that stage. But I've always been really interested in e-commerce in general and found it really entertaining. I like the marketing side of the front end and thinking about the customer psychology and their behaviors and how they shop. So I've always had a lot of interest in it. And I also like all the problem solving that you have to do on the back end on NetSuite. And it kind of hits both sides of the brain that I really like to think through and the problems that I like to resolve and business use cases. So that was where I really started with SuiteCommerce, and that was 6 or 7 years ago. And it's been, the product has evolved, and we've built so much IP and so many use cases. And I'll make a bold statement. Over the last year and a half, there hasn't been a problem somebody has come to me with that we haven't already solved. And that just comes through lots of experience, hundreds of projects, but it's been fun,
Good to hear. So for those who might be listening to this who haven't heard of SuiteCommerce before, can you just describe what is SuiteCommerce at a high level?
Yeah. SuiteCommerce sits on top of NetSuite. It's a NetSuite product, and it's a module that can be added onto the licensing. And when I say it sits on top of NetSuite, that means there's no integration required. It directly ties in via API and makes those calls. So as a result of that, it's not a separate application that stores data. So you're not having to integrate data between two systems, and that's one of the strengths for the B2B side. So if you think about integrations, right, you've got a database here and a database here, meaning NetSuite, and usually the other back office of the e-commerce. And normally you're tying customers to customers and sales orders to sales orders. But in this case, SuiteCommerce is just sitting on top of NetSuite. So you're not having to manage two separate databases and initiate anything out of it. So that's kind of a really critical thing to think about. So when I say your website customer, I'm saying your NetSuite customer record inside of NetSuite directly. That data, that ERP data is driving the user experience on the website. And because there's so much data that exists in the ERP, you can really surface it and manipulate it on SuiteCommerce.
Yeah, that's a good explanation. And recently I spoke with somebody about, SuiteCommerce for the first time, and that word integration kind of confused them because they're like, hold on, it's together. Isn't it actually, like, why are we even talking about an integration? Doesn't it have an integration since it's already together? And the way I think about it is sometimes we can use the word connection, right? So when we want to connect NetSuite to other platforms like a BigCommerce or a Shopify or something like that, right? You need a connection, which we in the industry refer to as an integration. And you need that something in the middle to connect the two. And I like how you pointed out, when you're using SuiteCommerce, you don't need that. So technically, like, it already is integrated, the data is all there. You don't need a separate integration software to do that. So
yeah, it's not the NetSuite user interface. So, and it's not a full integration in the same sense of passing data from one application to another, and like storing it in the other place. It's probably better described as sitting on top of NetSuite, and that helps you think about it as it's a different user interface, which you want that to be because you need a shopping experience, not an ERP interface. And you need to be able to manipulate that and customize that user interface too, that whole theme. So I think that thinking of it sitting on top of NetSuite paints the picture of it, the data being the NetSuite data that is driving it while having a separate user interface.
And Caleb, why is it important, or what's a pro to having it sit on top of a NetSuite account?
Well, SuiteCommerce can only exist if you have NetSuite. It can't be a standalone solution. So, and that's because it has to sit on top of it. But one of the biggest advantages is that you can directly access the NetSuite data for the My Account or customer experience. And normal data points that you're interacting with more natively will be your customer record, customer price levels. You'll have terms established in the checkout to allow for pay by invoice and invoice payments in the My Account. But for people who are very familiar with NetSuite, you can build saved searches, like queries of data. Think about it as like a Excel table of different data out of NetSuite. And you can use those saved searches, and you can actually surface them with some of our extensions into My Account and be able to have your customer log in and see additional ERP data that may not be normal for them to experience with an e-commerce. But I like to think about it more of a customer portal than e-commerce in a lot of cases, and that helps broaden the different use cases available for it.
Wait, Caleb, talk more about that. What do you mean you think about it as a customer portal? What do you mean by that?
Normally, people think of e-commerce as like a direct-to-consumer, business-to-customer type of scenario. But in the B2B space, it's more important to think of it as a customer portal where, yeah, you can enter in orders and add to cart and see your customer-specific pricing when you're logged in and pay invoices and do all of that. But being able to do and access more information that exists. Think about if you've got a customer support. You've got sales reps that are taking calls. You've got customer support that are taking calls from their customers too. Maybe they're needing certain data or documents that are in the ERP today, and they have to call customer support in order for them to email that data for customer support to log into NetSuite, go to their customer account, figure out where the data is, and then go ahead and email it to them. Whereas a customer portal like SuiteCommerce, you can surface that ERP data to your customer so they can log into their portal in their My Accounts and be able to access that data self-service. And that's helped saves a lot of customer support requests. And if you are doing an audit on the types of customer support requests you're getting, you can start to categorize them and decide to surface more data into the customer portal. In addition to that customer portal, allowing them to place new orders or recurring orders or paying invoices. So it's like expanding the horizons of what's possible.
Yeah, and that customer portal sounds like a strength of SuiteCommerce.
Yeah.
Can you explain that in some more detail, specifically how to leverage the customer portal really well?
By thinking of it as a customer portal, it helps think bigger, not just think as this is just a way for me to place orders. And when companies want to create efficiency for their team, automation can do it too, but also helping to save time from conversations that maybe aren't necessary. And I think customer portals are designed for as much self-service as possible. And I don't know, I just think that that's its strength for SuiteCommerce, because being able to access that data that normally you'd have to pass through pretty heavy integrations and then build a whole front-end interface on top of that, where I could just access it via the extensibility layer in SuiteCommerce and pull it forward to present to the customers.
Yeah. And I like your thoughts on the customer portal and specifically how it works in SuiteCommerce, because I've talked with merchants and they're so busy in the day-to-day of managing orders, a lot of which come through the phone. So their internal folks are bogged down with that. And sometimes spinning up an e-commerce website is something they want to do, but they don't feel like they have the time. And I like the way that you think about, you're suggesting to take it more as a customer portal approach, because essentially a website that's built well and structured well, as you're saying, can optimize that company's efficiency to reallocate that time and energy internally.
Yeah.
Right? And so it might seem like a lot to take on at the initial phases of discovery, but once you realize like, oh dang, we could be saving time for our team if we get this by having orders go through the portal, go through the e-commerce website. I don't know, it's opened up the eyes of some of the companies we've spoken with about this.
Yeah, saving time is probably the part that people don't think about, is the interactions. Maybe between their own team interacting with one another. People normally think about automations with NetSuite as like, how do I save some clicks and to populate data in the right spots to drive the system. But people don't realize that how much time they spend on a phone with a customer, how much time they're spending between each other trying to get answers on where something is and training how to access that data. And that time really adds up in time. That is one of the most expensive pieces, is paying salaries and the cost of business of that. By freeing up 20% of their time by that easy to access data in the ERP to surface it to a customer portal, huge value add.
Huge value add.
That by itself pays, the ROI is like usually less than a year.
Yeah, so I like how essentially you're saying, when we talk about this, we're not talking about saving a couple of clicks, a couple of seconds. We're talking about like saving tasks somebody needs to accomplish within a day, which saves much more time.
We're talking hours of their day that we're trying to free up.
So Caleb, walk us through the ROI. What does that look like for a company? What can it look like?
Yeah, I think with SuiteCommerce specifically, it really favors B2B companies or like that have a B2C component to it. So as a result of that, you're normally going to have companies that have a lot of inside sales reps and have a handful of outside sales reps. Taking in those phone call orders, email orders, consumes their entire day. And if you want to be able to get more accounts and grow, you got to free up those inside sales team costs that you're taking those orders in. And yeah, it's probably how you've always done it before. And yes, it makes sense to also be interacting with your customers in that way. And there's other ways to continue to interact with your customers and to adapt along the way. So I've really liked our SuiteCommerce Managed Service offering that focuses on creating more ROI for your portal, meaning getting more customers to be able to place orders on SuiteCommerce. And part of that means creating more value for the customer to access that portal, to help show them that there's more things they can access more than just placing an order. And it helps get them some reps in to utilize it so it becomes familiar and easy to use. And once something's become familiar for your customers and has become easy to use, then they start to use it. They're not calling in as much. Then you may ask, well, how do I keep that personal connection with the customers so that they know their sales rep and they can have that personal connection? Because there's going to be times where the portal might not be the best spot to ask certain things or to surface certain things, that they still need to contact the rep and have that relationship, and the rep can figure out a way to upsell and find other opportunities with that chance to talk to them. But I think that one idea, for instance, that we roll out sometimes in our managed service plans is to do like a sales rep surfacing. So when the customer logs in, they can see the image of their sales rep, the email, the phone number, maybe like a Zoom personal meeting link in case they reach out. The sales rep can say, just jump on my Zoom link. It's when you're logged in right there. See, just click on that. I'll admit you into the room and we can help you finish placing your order, answer some questions quick. It's a way to create that personal connection. Every time that customer logs in, they still see that sales rep's face. And it still creates that connection. Now, on the ROI side, you're really looking at freeing up time by saving your sales reps time from placing orders. Let's say I've got 6 sales reps placing orders all day long, inside sales reps, by email, by phone. That's their entire job. They probably make roughly, let's say their salary is $75,000 a year, roughly that, or their compensation. Your cost of business normally is calculated by your compensation times 1.4 to accommodate for benefits and taxes to the business. So each of those sales reps are costing the business $105,000 a year times 6. Okay? Now you're looking at what, did math in my head real quick, 630 about, I could be wrong there, but just about, 630,000 recurring every year just to place orders, where your customer portal can do those same actions to place those orders too. Now, you may not be convinced that they can place all the orders, but let's say they can place 20% of those because they're easier reorders or just easier. That means I'm saying roughly 125,000 a year can be saved by having that customer portal to allow them to just do that's just like the sales orders themselves, creating those sales orders in NetSuite. Not to mention some of those other elements that may exist in the My Account, like paying invoices, getting paid on time, helping with cash flow. But the ROI is really clear. It frees up time. And most of our managed service plan offering, after we help implement and get a nice theme in place and user experience, is trying to create functionality in a very strategically rolled out way to help the sales rep guide the customers to use the portal, but also to create opportunities to change behavior of those customers to use it. And then we're creating that ROI for the customers. Long-winded answer, but I think it required a little bit of extra description.
For sure. Yeah. And that description is worthwhile. It makes sense. Now, one part that I would add for just the importance of having an e-commerce website with a built out, really good customer portal is for net new customers. I know we speak with a lot of companies and they're really focused on their current customers, which is great. But as we think about scaling a business and increasing revenue to maximize the tech stack you're using, the software you're using, net new customers is something that shouldn't be overlooked. And, even in the B2B space, there are companies out there who need to go online to place an order for something they need for their business, right? And those customers have probably gone and they've done that with other companies that already have an e-commerce website and a great customer portal. But maybe because of inventory limitations or whatever, they need something, and your company could be the right fit. And so that's another area where I think having just a good website and a good customer portal is important, so that once you land a net new customer, well, first off, you're discoverable, right? They can actually find you, and the path to purchase is going to be quicker and smoother if they're already, kind of a tech-first company or really tech-savvy, right? If they're used to ordering things online, like so many of us are with Amazon and with other websites out there. So I just don't. I think that's an area where people can put in some more thought. Is just how do we acquire net new customers using the portal?
I have a couple ideas off the top of my head that companies should focus on getting that 20% of those phone call in orders to use the website, and that's why I designed a specific service offering for that, because then you freed up 20% of those sales rep time. Now, you probably don't want to lay off someone because of that. What you want to do instead is leverage that time, that 20% that was freed, and let them go find new accounts. Let them do some
Let them go
outbound.
hunt the new deals. Yeah.
Go hunt some more deals with that saved time. They've got that opportunity. They're not bogged down anymore. And in addition to just SEO and being able to be found on Google, having good shopping feeds and having that syndication across the board, but there's that time is now able to be used to find new accounts. And
Yeah.
that's why I like that strategy for the B2B space, because B2B often requires to find new accounts, often requires that human interaction more than the SEO is as strong at. There's still ways to acquire new B2B customers through SEO, but I mean, nothing like a personal connection when you're generating that new account.
Yeah. Yeah, those are some great ideas for B2B businesses on SuiteCommerce. Caleb, but what about B2C companies on SuiteCommerce? What have you seen as success stories in that arena?
Yeah. Even though the strengths of SuiteCommerce are on the B2B side, that it has both within the same domain. And it's mostly based on your logged in user, where it's actually a B2C site in general. You can think of it as a business to consumer site. And then when the customer logs in, it changes the functionality to be the B2B behavior. And it's based on that customer record when they log in. If they have any price levels established from NetSuite, then when they log in, all the item pricing swaps out. So volume-based pricing, price levels, customer-specific pricing on specific items. That's another way. Any promo codes assigned to that customer or customer group are available. There's some other functionality tied to that customer too. And if you have any customizations, you could say this customer only gets access to be ordering from a certain warehouse location. Lots of logic that you can define based on the customer logging in. And then for a direct-to-consumer customer, when they register, obviously they'll get created more as like a lead inside of NetSuite, and they can place an order at list price, but they're not going to be able to pay by invoice because they don't have terms established. Haven't gone through that full registration flow to be a B2B customer with custom pricing. And you can create a form for the wholesale login and the wholesale registration, and also a direct-to-consumer, where the direct-to-consumer registration just gets list priced. And there's ways to use something called personalized catalog views to segment which products are available for the people who are logged out or those direct-to-consumers, as well as maybe even a different product catalog for certain customers or groups of customers when they log in as a B2B customer. Lots of functionality, but it's almost entirely tied to what the customer record logging in as.
Okay. Hey, that paints a good picture of how it can be used in all those scenarios. Now, let's get a little technical here. Okay.
Sure.
I know you like, from what you mentioned at the beginning, right? I know you like the technical side. What is one of the most complex technical solves you've had to do within the SuiteCommerce environment?
I don't know if there's one that jumps out at me, but I have like 5 ones that are more technical than normal
Yeah.
that are pretty neat. Let's see. We've got this sales rep login on behalf functionality, which also allows for like customer, sub-customer swapping with one username and login and swap. There's some functionality we've created for my account where you can log in as a parent customer and pay sub-customer invoices or pay invoices across subsidiaries, where you have one customer tied to like 5 subsidiaries.
Yeah.
We can group them into a single checkout flow. That's a pretty neat solution. Being able to surface anything to my account, like those saved searches, a CSV add to cart functionality where you can drag and drop a CSV file of items. It'll extract them and add it to the cart. This can be useful if your customers come to you with like a CSV file of 100 SKUs. Rather than navigating to each of those product pages, they can just drag and drop it in and automatically get added to the cart. And then there's been some really nice themes that we've created too. And theme development does take some effort on SuiteCommerce, but we can manipulate it to be whatever you want. And there's been some really nice themes that we've created over the years for different customers. Those are a couple off the top of my head. Yeah. Oh, contact management in my account. Really, I haven't had someone come to me with something that we couldn't solve.
Yeah. Well, with years of experience, right, working with a bunch of different companies, it makes sense that, you and specifically the SuiteCommerce team here at Anchor Group, just you have solves for things. Because at the end of the day, right, running a business has some of the same elements, yet, there are some intricacies there. And so, problems can stay similar between them. Now, if you were to recommend SuiteCommerce for a company, what type of company would you be recommending that for? Like, what is an ideal company for a SuiteCommerce website? We know they need to have NetSuite, so that's like
Right.
the qualification right there. But what are key indicators within a company that where SuiteCommerce might be a really good fit?
Well, there's actually 3 SuiteCommerce products, but I'll just talk, and maybe we can talk about that next.
Yeah.
I'm going to specifically just talk about the SuiteCommerce, previously called SuiteCommerce Standard, and I'll start with that one. I'd say that SuiteCommerce favors the B2B the most, or like a B2C, B2B blend. Then I often think about BigCommerce as like covers a bigger range of B2B, B2C. And then for B2C only, Shopify and BigCommerce make most sense to me in general. But whenever you have a good chunk of B2B, then SuiteCommerce is a pretty clear play. And also, if you have a smaller budget in comparison to all of those other solutions, I think SuiteCommerce is faster set up as your first e-commerce solution. Maybe a lot of B2B companies, it's like their first time they've had a customer portal. And when that's the case, SuiteCommerce makes a lot of sense. There's a lot to learn, and it's a good stepping stone, and it's scalable. And it doesn't have transaction fees in the same way as a lot of other solutions have. So it makes a lot of sense.
Caleb, how does
Yeah.
licensing work for SuiteCommerce?
It's just straight licensing. It's just an annual fee. It's co-termed with your NetSuite licensing that you already have, and it's straightforward. There's no per transaction fee, not based on transaction volume, and it's just straight licensing.
Yeah, and that can be
Nice.
a real benefit for companies that are really interested in getting into the e-commerce scene, just because, like you mentioned, those other platforms, many of the other common platforms have that per transaction fee, and the fee structure just set up very differently.
Well, and on top of that, you've got the integration costs, which for B2C integrations are easier than B2B integrations. Because if you think about it, for your B2C, your number of flows are less. Once you add that B2B element, then you've got invoices plus invoice payments. You might have quotes that you're dealing with. You might have a number of other records that exist in my account. And if you're trying to create a customer portal that I was describing in this episode about all this other data that might be useful to surface to my account, you'd have to pass that through integrations.
Mm-hmm.
So not only the cost of the integration software, but also the implementation. And I rarely recommend the NetSuite connector for anything for e-commerce. The only time I do is for just straight B2C integrations. It just doesn't handle the B2B component. So as soon as you have any element of B2B, integrating those B2B versions outside of SuiteCommerce can be kind of complicated and add to the total cost of ownership overall. So that's why I like to start with SuiteCommerce for many clients, because it's a little bit easier to swallow the total costs for B2B e-commerce.
Yeah, those are good points. So let's get back to talking about some of the standard kinds of, or some of the standard elements that you can have with SuiteCommerce. Like you mentioned, my account and that sort of thing. But talk us through kind of those 3 standard
The
and the
products,
parts.
the different products.
Yeah, the different products.
Well, technically, there's 4 that share the name SuiteCommerce, but I'm going to exclude SuiteCommerce in-store. It's a point-of-sale solution.
Okay.
It is not customizable. What you get out of the box is all you get, basically. So we rarely touch that for, even though it shares the SuiteCommerce name, it is actually a totally different software, which we've implemented before. But I'm going to just exclude that one for now because it's the most different. And then we're just going to focus on 3 other SuiteCommerce products, which is SuiteCommerce Advanced, SuiteCommerce, and SuiteCommerce My Account. SuiteCommerce Advanced was the very first iteration of SuiteCommerce. They didn't have the other 2 versions. And SuiteCommerce and SuiteCommerce Advanced are basically they're the same product. The only difference of SuiteCommerce Advanced, only real difference, is access to source code. However, you can override source code with extensibility layer on SuiteCommerce and SuiteCommerce Advanced. It's just good practice to use extensions to extend the functionality. And that means that you rarely, really rarely ever need SuiteCommerce Advanced. So I'm really always recommending that people go with SuiteCommerce over SuiteCommerce Advanced. Plus, SuiteCommerce has automatic updates, where SuiteCommerce Advanced is version locked and requires manual updates to do those. There can be pros and cons to version locking, though. A pro could be like maybe you have an incredible amount of customizations and such high transaction volume that going down for 30 minutes would be really catastrophic. And it's just one more risk to mitigate by having it being version locked. It can make sense. But that is really rare that someone is going to be trying to do that type of a volume on SuiteCommerce to need SuiteCommerce Advanced for that version locking. So in my mind, that is really rarely a fit because I can do everything on SuiteCommerce and I don't need SCA for anything. It's just extra licensing for SCA. It's about twice the cost as SuiteCommerce, and I can do it all on SuiteCommerce. So that's really all I'm going with that nowadays. And I take a lot of customers off SuiteCommerce Advanced and move them to SuiteCommerce to help with their licensing, make it a little cheaper, but also to take advantage of those automatic updates. Now,
And when you just said SCA, so SCA means SuiteCommerce Advanced, correct?
That's right.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Thanks for the.
Yeah. So how about
Now we'll take out the last one is SuiteCommerce My Account. And 3-4 years ago, I can't remember the year exactly, but it was around then. NetSuite decided to take apart the My Account part of SuiteCommerce and make it a standalone product. It's mostly designed for reorder and pay invoices, an invoice portal. But you can surface, and we actually have ways to be able to add the cart technically within the My Account product. It is for like the cheapest licensing out of all 3 of them, but it doesn't have the full shopping experience or the same checkout flows. And
Caleb,
there's some good use cases there.
When you say the full shopping experience, paint a picture of what that could look like. Are we talking about kind of a standard e-commerce site where you might have a home page and then different individual pages for products? Is that what you're referencing?
Yeah, SuiteCommerce My Account requires a login. There's no home page or product listing page, product detail page, or like the full cart B2C. So My Account would only apply for B2B only.
So are you saying that there are ways once you log into My Account that we have ways to still be able to surface that product data once you're logged in?
Yeah, the native functionality of My Account is to reorder product only from a shopping perspective, but we have extensions that let you surface like a table of products with an add to cart button for each of those. And there are ways to still accomplish a shopping experience of some type that are just with extensions that we've built.
So theoretically, it sounds like you can kind of build a catalog within My Account.
Yeah.
That functions like a shopping experience, as if you're ordering from a catalog.
That's right.
Yeah. And
yeah.
I mean,
there's probably one other thing to make a point on is SuiteCommerce and SuiteCommerce Advanced include My Account. they are made of 3 applications: the shopping, the checkout, and the My Account. And when I was mentioning that NetSuite broke out the My Account, I'm saying that they took out that one application and made it a standalone. The My Account has its own like reorder checkout experience that's a little different than the standard checkout. So there is still checkout in a sense, but it's in a separate application. So that's how those products, you can think about them as different.
That's a good point. So I feel like what I've heard through this whole conversation is that if you have NetSuite, SuiteCommerce is a legitimate option for your e-commerce and buyer portal needs. And there's a lot of functionality and a lot of ways that here at Anchor Group, we can extend the functionality to get exactly what the customer is looking for.
Yeah, and I like to be able to say yes to a customer, and because of all that IP, they'll be able to just ask me questions on, I want this functionality, and I can say yes. And we really started to offer mostly just fixed bids, kind of going forward throughout the rest of this year. That's because we have all that intellectual property. It's just easy to be able to stand them up and know precisely the price on a lot of these functionality pieces. And that I found to be really valuable to a lot of our prospects that want to work with us.
Yeah. And when you have a fixed bid, it's nice, like you're saying, because here at Anchor Group, we've done it before. And we know how to make it work. So that's fantastic. Anything else, Caleb, that you think it'd be important for people to think about as they consider SuiteCommerce?
I think that it's important to talk to someone that actually knows the really product very well and knows how to just think off the top of their head to solution design on the spot. There's not that many people that are really good at just solution designing on the spot to be able to answer all your questions. And it'll be way more important to work with a partner to be able to support you, to get you a successful implementation, and to help you think outside the box on what's possible to achieve. Because once you realize that you don't have the same boundaries you once had, that you have to work within, same constraints, then you can really take advantage of automation and make your business so different from your competitors that you really stand out. And one way to capture new accounts is to have something your competitors don't have. And that's really advanced customer portals.
Yeah, fantastic.
Yeah, that's about it. Well, oh, I got one more cough. Yeah, I mean, it was nice to go through SuiteCommerce because it's one of my favorite topics to talk about, and it might be fun to talk through some different real company use cases at some point. Maybe on our next episode, we'll go through some more company use cases, and I can go through examples on how I solution design or how I think about their specific company use cases in different verticals. Maybe I'll focus on wholesale distribution, or retail, manufacturing, software verticals, how each of these portals could be structured and functional. And hopefully it helps people see all the possibilities that SuiteCommerce can do. And I've been a big fan of just getting creative and leveraging some of the technology that NetSuite has available.
Yeah, that sounds like a great plan, and I'm sure so much can be learned from looking at those success stories out there.
Yeah, and just some fictitious ones. Maybe we'll make up some examples that I've been always curious about creating some creative ideas for.
Yeah, sounds good. Cool. Sounds like a plan.
All right, thanks, Michael. Appreciate it.
Yep, good conversation. We'll see you next week.